It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America. Everybody's heard about the Aztecs. Everybody's heard about the Maya.
The Mayans had a weird culture. How beautiful their structures were. Like these amazing structures.
Graham Hancock offers an intriguing perspective on the ancient Maya, emphasizing the depth of their astronomical knowledge and the significance they placed on cosmic cycles. Hancock notes that the Maya were aware of a 5,000-year cycle of bureaucratic civilization, hinting at their deep understanding of time and historical patterns. He highlights the Maya's recognition of the world age concept, likening it to the millennial turning of the Judeo-Christian calendar. The Maya saw the culmination of the long count calendar, which corresponds to December 21, 2012, as a time of great transformation and the beginning of a new world age. Unlike apocalyptic visions in other traditions, the Maya viewed these period endings as opportunities for renewal and rebirth, a testament to their sophisticated view of time as cyclic rather than linear. In the early part of the 8th century, the Maya civilization was reaching the peak of its power and magnificence. They built incredible cities so large and intricate that people who discovered them later couldn't believe the Maya made them. They thought maybe these mysterious lost tribes like the Israelites or the Phoenicians must have built them. These cities were wonders of their time, but about 150 years later, something terrible happened. The once thriving Maya civilization started to fall apart in one of the most dramatic and disastrous turns of events in history. This collapse was so significant that historians and archaeologists still talk about it today. However, the Maya people didn't just disappear. They resisted Spanish rule until 1697, which is almost 200 years after other great civilizations like the Aztecs and Inca had been conquered. There's no question that the Maya civilization, especially in the southern lowlands, experienced a kind of collapse. But the big mystery is why it happened. Sadly, we don't have any records from the Maya people themselves about this collapse. The stone monuments they left behind usually tell us about their kings and gods, not about everyday things like farming. And any books that might have had this information were destroyed a long time ago. What we do understand is that during the 8th and 9th centuries, things started to go wrong. The alliances between different Maya groups broke down, trading between cities slowed down, and violent conflicts became more and more common. A famous example of this is the wars between the cities of Tikal and Calakmul. By the year 830 AD, the Maya had pretty much stopped building their big impressive structures. The last known date recorded on a Maya monument is January 16, 910. This date marks the end of an era for the Maya, a time when their amazing civilization in the southern lowlands faded away. Like other great civilizations that collapsed like Rome or the Hittites, the fall of the Maya wasn't just because of one thing. Most experts think that 3 big problems caused the collapse: wars, environmental problems, and drought. Let's start with the wars. There had been fighting in the Maya region for a long time, but now it was getting worse. Wars were happening more often and were more destructive. These wars weren't just about kings fighting kings anymore, they were affecting everyone, even ordinary people. The beautiful temples and palaces in Maya cities were destroyed. Some were even torn down on purpose to make walls and other defenses because the cities were under attack. Many cities built walls for protection. Some even had walls running right through the middle of the city. Life in these cities was changing fast. Big projects were left unfinished, and rulers weren't given proper burials. Many people from the countryside were fleeing to the cities looking for safety. For example, the population of Tikal might have jumped from around 60 to 80,000 to as high as 200,000 during this time. But wars weren't the only problem. The environment was also causing trouble. The place where the Maya lived, the Yucatan Peninsula, is a tough place to survive. The Maya had to come up with smart and expensive ways to live there. They needed lots of trees to build their cities and to make the plaster for their buildings. But cutting down all those trees caused other problems, like soil erosion, which made farming harder. The very success of the Maya cities was also creating the problems that could lead to their downfall. Then came the droughts. The Maya were usually good at dealing with not having enough water. They built aqueducts and cisterns to collect and store water. But the droughts that hit them between 800 and 1100 AD were extreme. There was a particularly bad drought that lasted for 40 years from 820 to 860, and another one around 930. Then there was an even longer drought from 1000 to 1100. A whole century without enough water. These droughts made everything else worse. There were already wars going on and the soil was already damaged. The kings, who were supposed to keep the gods happy and make sure the rain came, were failing. And when the rain didn't come, the people suffered. They planted their crops, but nothing grew. This might have led the people to turn against their kings in violent uprisings. Any one of these problems might have been something the Maya could deal with on its own. They could have recovered from the damage of wars, found ways to deal with droughts, invented new ways to farm, or come up with new kinds of government. But all of these problems happening at the same time was too much. It was a mix of complicated and connected issues that led to the collapse of the Maya civilization. It wasn't just one event, but a series of events that built on each other, making the situation worse and worse until it was too much for the civilization to handle. However, it's worth considering alternative perspectives like those of Graham Hancock, who approaches the history of ancient civilizations, including the Maya, from a different vantage point. Hancock, an author known for his unconventional theories, encourages us to look beyond the traditional academic narrative. He suggests that we might be overlooking critical pieces of the historical puzzle. Hancock's work raises intriguing questions about the possibility of advanced prehistoric knowledge and lost civilizations. He speculates about the Maya's capabilities, hinting at the idea that their architectural and astronomical achievements might stem from a deeper, perhaps forgotten source of wisdom. While Hancock's theories are met with skepticism by the mainstream archaeological community due to lack of empirical evidence, his perspective invites us to explore the mysteries of the Maya with an open mind. It's crucial, though, to approach these alternative theories with a discerning eye, recognizing the importance of evidence in historical inquiry. Nonetheless, the dialogues that thinkers like Hancock stimulate contribute to the broader conversation about our understanding of ancient civilizations, challenging us to continually reassess and expand our knowledge. After the great collapse of their civilization, many people wonder what happened to those who survived. It's a fascinating question for archaeologists. Not everyone was lost. In fact, millions of people lived in the southern lowlands. While many aspects of this period remain a mystery, we do know that some of these survivors moved north. During this time, known as the Terminal Classic period, cities in the north like Chichen Itza and Uxmal began to grow and prosper. So even though the southern lowlands stopped building grand monuments and hosting huge cities, the northern lowlands were actually thriving. It's a common misunderstanding that the Maya disappeared after their civilization collapsed. That's not true at all. Instead, they went through a huge transformation. Chichen Itza, for instance, became a very important place by adapting to the new political landscape that came after the collapse. They moved away from having god-kings and instead they had councils that made decisions. They also controlled important trade routes, including those for salt, making it the political hub of the northern lowlands from the 10th to the 13th century. They built incredible structures like El Castillo. The building has a special design so that during the spring and autumn equinoxes, it looks like a serpent is moving down its stairs. After Chichen Itza's influence started to fade in the 11th century, Mayapan became the next big power. But by 1448 it was abandoned, facing problems similar to those that caused the earlier collapse. The period was troubled with natural disasters and more wars, which didn't really stop until around 1511. That's when the Spanish arrived, marking the beginning of the end for the independent Maya civilization. To really understand the conflict that followed, it's important to consider what the Spanish brought with them. They introduced diseases that the native people had never faced before, like smallpox, influenza, and measles. The impact was devastating, leading to what might be the most significant loss of life in human history. Within 100 years, 90% of the native population had disappeared. While the Maya were amongst the first in Mesoamerica to encounter the Spanish, they had a few years before the Spanish turned their full attention to them, initially being more interested in the gold-rich Aztecs in Mexico. The real Spanish conquest of the Maya didn't start until 1528, led by Pedro de Alvarado and his brothers, who had already been part of the conquest of the Aztecs. However, conquering the Maya was not going to be a quick or easy task. The Maya people, unlike the Aztecs or Inca, didn't have a single leader or ruler that the Spanish conquistadors could capture to gain control. The way they fought was also different from the Aztecs. They used sneak attacks, launching surprise assaults on Spanish camps during the night. They were experts at setting up traps in the thick jungle and were quick to strike and then vanish. The Spanish soldiers had never faced such challenging warfare before. The jungles where the Maya lived were a tough place to fight, filled with dangers and unknowns. Before the Spanish even started their invasion, the smallpox disease had spread to some parts of where the Maya lived. So by the time the Spanish invaders, led by Alvarado brothers, arrived, they found themselves in a world that had already been turned upside down by disease. The destruction caused by the disease was like a sudden and deadly attack, wiping out many people before the Spanish even got there. But the Maya didn't give up easily. They continued to resist strongly. It took a long time until the year 1542 for the Spanish to establish a city of their own called Merida in the Maya region. The Spanish had a tough time because they had to fight for control of each Maya city or community one by one. And when they did manage to get control of one area, they faced rebellions as soon as they moved on to the next. During these battles, the Spanish were not alone. They had help from thousands of local people from Mexico and the Maya region. Some of these helpers were experienced, having been part of other battles before. Some powerful families, leaders, and cities among the Maya people decided to support the Spanish, thinking they might benefit from it in the short term. We know about this because there's a painting from that time that shows these local allies helping a Spanish leader, Jorge de Alvarado, in his military campaign between 1527 and 1529. The Maya people got a short break when one of the Spanish leaders, Pedro de Alvarado, died in 1541. But by this time the strongest Maya kingdoms, like the Kaiche and Kaqchikal, had fallen. Without these powerful kingdoms, it was very hard for the Maya to come together and resist the Spanish in a big way. Nochpeten, a unique city located on an island in the midst of a lake in northern Guatemala, was the last bastion of resistance against the Spanish conquest. Known for its strategic position and protective walls, Nochpeten was home to the resilient Itza tribe. The city stood strong and managed to fend off invaders for a significant period, symbolizing the enduring spirit and determination of the Maya people. The year 1697 marked a pivotal moment in the history of Nochpeten and the Maya resistance. Martín de Ozua, a Spanish commander, led a formidable assault on the city. He brought a large boat armed with powerful cannons and mortars to lay siege to Nochpeten. The island city, with its inherent defensive advantages, held out as long as it could against the overwhelming firepower and military tactics of the Spanish forces. Despite the valiant efforts of the Itza inhabitants, the city eventually succumbed to the Spanish onslaught. The fall of Tenochtitlan signified the end of an era, as it marked the conclusion of the Maya people's prolonged and fierce resistance against the Spanish invaders. This moment in history is remembered not only for the conquest, but also for the enduring spirit of resistance and the rich cultural heritage of the Maya civilization that continues to be celebrated and honored to this day. The people living in the city were determined to fight until the very end. In their final effort, they surrounded a boat using their small canoes. Despite their bravery, they were forced to retreat, and tragically, many were shot as they attempted to escape by swimming. On March 10, 1697, their city faced heavy bombardment and was eventually captured. However, the spirit of the Maya people did not break. They continued to resist, notably during the Yucatec Maya rebellions in 1847 and again in 1860, when they almost succeeded in reclaiming the entire Yucatan region. In 1910, another significant uprising occurred against the dictatorial rule of Porfirio Diaz. Additionally, the Zapatista National Liberation Army has been actively challenging the Mexican government since their first major uprising in 1994. Despite facing challenges and conflicts, especially where traditional Maya always meets Western influences, the Maya culture remains robust. Its resilience is evident in the preservation of customs, languages, and religious beliefs. The modern Maya are not only guardians of a rich cultural heritage, but are also active participants in rediscovering and rejuvenating their ancestral knowledge. The cultural renaissance is particularly significant given the centuries of cultural suppression that the Maya endured. Archaeological sites, once centers of the ancient Maya civilization, now serve as places of work and life for the contemporary Maya. These sites, with their majestic temple pyramids, palaces, and plazas, attract tourists from around the world and are a source of pride and connection to the past for the Maya people. The Maya's deep connection to the land, the sky, and their traditions continues to shape their worldview, making them a unique and integral part of the rich tapestry of human culture. The story of modern Maya is one of resilience, adaptability, and a profound commitment to preserving and celebrating their rich cultural heritage as they navigate the complexities of the 21st century. What do you think made the Maya civilization fade away? Share your ideas. And if you liked learning about history and nature, remember to hit like and subscribe for more awesome stories about our amazing world.